Hello everyone, this is Jim Lucy, Editor-in-Chief for Electrical Wholesaling and Electrical Marketing with episode number 98 of the Today's Electrical Economy podcast series sponsored by Champion Fiberglass. Champion began producing epoxy fiberglass conduit in 1988 and in 1999 developed the first conduit from epoxy resins that had flame resistance and low smoke characteristics. This met the most stringent codes and specifications. Today's episode will be looking at the largest construction projects I could find that broke ground or entered the planning stages in second quarter of 2024. We'll also be providing updates for 5 key weekly economic indicators, initial unemployment claims at the state level, rail freight car traffic, the Baker Hughes rig count, oil prices, and copper prices. Our thanks again to Champion Fiberglass for sponsoring today's Electrical Economy podcast series for 2024. For the week ending June the 8th, the advanced figure for seasonally adjusted initial unemployment claims was 242,000. That is an increase of 13,000 from the previous week's unrevised level of 229,000. The 4-week moving average, 227,000. That is also an increase. Some of the talk shows on financial channels were a bit surprised at the increase there. Let's see what it does again next month to see if it's any kind of a longer-term trend. The unemployment rate for the United States in May was 4%. That is up 0.1% over April. The most recent unemployment data at the state level from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows a very definite increase in claims. No state had a claims decrease of more than 1,000, which I always like to take a look at as showing a pretty significant decline in unemployment claims. These 5 states had the biggest decreases in unemployment claims for the week ending June the 8th. North Dakota was down 735, Missouri down 631 to 3,293, State of Tennessee down 274 claims at 3,429, State of Kansas down 266 to 1,254. Alabama down 209 claims to 2,377. And the state of Mississippi now standing at 1,440 following a decline of 206. Week ending June the 8th, 11 states had new unemployment claims of at least 1,000. That's a pretty big number since I've been tracking the data. If it gains momentum, it would indicate a change in the direction of the overall U.S. unemployment claims and potentially the U.S. economy. Biggest increase went to California, up 10,311 claims to 51,110. Minnesota up 4,342 claims to 11,087. State of Pennsylvania up 4,134, now standing at 15,214. Illinois up 2,294, now standing at 11,435. Texas increased their claims to 2,206, now at 17,093. Michigan up 1,750. Up to 6,392. Florida up 1,649, now standing at 8,709. New York now at 13,193, up 1,545 claims from the previous week. Georgia up 1,482 from the previous week, now standing at 4,911. State of Indiana up 1,129, now standing at 3,468. And Oregon now standing at 4,086. That's an increase of 1,007 claims from the previous week. The leading economic indicator that I always like to look at to get a sense of the overall U.S. economy is freight rail traffic. It's a measure of the amount of raw materials and finished goods being shipped by rail. The best source for this data is the American Association of Railroads, or AAR, and it publishes this data weekly. For the week ending June the 8th, total U.S. weekly rail traffic was 489,916 carloads and intermodals. That's up 4.1% compared with the same week last year. For the first 23 weeks of 2024, the U.S. railroads reported cumulative volumes of 4,901,744 carloads, which is down 5% from the same point last year, and 5,840,146 intermodal units, which is up 8.8% from the same time last year. Combine those two numbers together for the first 23 weeks of the year, we're up to 10,741,890 carloads and intermodal units, and that is an increase of 2% compared to last year. I found what Rand Gahad, the chief economist of the Association of American Railroads, had to say about last month's freight traffic to be interesting. Here was his take. At first glance, rail traffic in May seems to display mixed signals. While coal's continued decline has led to a decrease in total carloads, a closer examination of the data reveals that carloads, excluding coal, increased for the 4th consecutive month. Although it's unlikely that we'll witness a reversal in coal's trend, other commodities, such as intermodal traffic and petroleum, hold greater growth potential and will likely be more important strategically for railroads in the future. In May, intermodal traffic spiked, maintaining its upward trajectory over several months. This surge reflects both increased port activity and intensified effort by roads to compete in a fiercely competitive market. Additionally, solid volume gains were observed for petroleum products, chemicals, and grain. So it sounds like we should be looking at the automotive traffic in the future and also petroleum as two of the growth areas for the market. We'll keep an eye on that for you. As the AAR chief economist said, coal once again led all declines for the month with an 8.2% drop year-to-date, and that's compared to year-over-year figures. Non-metallic minerals at 7.9% decline, and metallic ores were down 3% decline compared to this time last year. On the positive side of the ledger, petroleum and petroleum products led the market with a 10.9% increase, followed by total intermodal units at 8.8%. The other categories had smaller increases: motor vehicles and parts up 4.3%, chemicals up 3.9%, grain up 2.1%, and farm products excluding grain and food were up 1.1%. Altogether, not a bad report. If you track the oil market, you're probably familiar with the Baker Hughes rig count, which tracks the oil and gas rigs that are operating. The data is available by state, by basin, and nationally at www.rigcount.bakerhughes.com. This slide gives you an idea of the largest oil and gas deposits. It gives you a good sense of just how many of the large oil plays are in Texas and Oklahoma, and also bits of New Mexico. It also gives you a sense of how big the Marcellus gas region covers in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and parts of West Virginia. The overall rig count continues to slide in the U.S. compared to the Baker Hughes Company. In total, according to Baker Hughes' count, there are 97 fewer rigs operating right now than there were at this time last year. That's a 14% decline. Texas and Louisiana both lost 2 rigs compared to the data from last week, and Texas accounted for about 2/3 of the total decline in the Baker Hughes rig count. That being said, Texas still accounts for 48% of all operating rigs in the United States. The current price of WTI crude oil, or West Texas Intermediate, as of June 17th is $78.43. West Texas Intermediate has spent most of the last month in the $70 to $80 range and is currently just right around the average price year to date. While prices in this range are comparatively healthy, market watchers are watching any sustained move over $80 per barrel and see that a climb to this range to be a very positive sign for oil producers. Economists like to call copper pricing Dr. Copper because he's the leading economic indicator for future activity since copper is used in so many different industries. The construction industry is among the leading markets for copper because it was used in wire and cable and copper plumbing pipe. Copper prices hit on the COMEX on June 17th, $4.43 per pound. Year to date, they're averaging $4.18 per pound, so as you can see, we're quite a bit over the yearly average right now. They did hit a record price of over $5 a pound going back to early to mid-May. We'll see if we can climb back to that. Some people seem to think that with all the demand long-term from data centers, from AI, and the electrification, it will definitely get up there. It's a very tough market to judge, but that seems to be the long-term prognostication. It's been an interesting year in the construction market. While the month-to-month growth has been rather slow so far in 2024, the year-over-year growth compared to last year, at least through April, according to the Department of Commerce value of new construction figures, is up 10%. What makes this market different to me from previous years is the presence of several gigantic projects valued at more than $10 billion in total contract value, and at least 29 projects valued at $1 billion or more, and a handful of concentrated markets, including, as you can imagine, data centers, some large renewables, and this year, hospitals have been actually quite hot. In the photo here is actually the report for offshore wind development off the coast of Long Island. This is going to be going in on the Brooklyn waterfront. It just broke ground about a week and a half ago in early June. As I was updating my database for electrical marketing newsletter of the large construction projects, there were 10 projects that really stuck out to me because of their sheer size and also the fact that they're very concentrated in the type of markets that they're involved with. There were 4 projects over $10 billion in total size, rated by construction value. The largest, a $16 billion project, the Gateway Rail Tunnel under the Hudson River between New York and New Jersey, and that's going to handle all the commuter traffic there. The other tunnels that are handling it right now are absolutely ancient. That's a big project for the metropolitan New York area. Big project out going the other side of the country out west is the Brightline West, 218-mile long high-speed rail between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. It's a $12 billion project. Broke ground in April. There's been a lot of talk on that one. Brightline also has done some work in Florida with some long-distance high-speed lines. Very interesting. Data centers, no surprise there, but this is a really big data center campus. $11 billion, the Amazon Web Services campus plans announced in April for New Carlisle, Indiana. Indiana has been home to a number of data centers, as you'll see shortly. The other project over the $10 billion mark, we had an $11 billion project. It's a renewable wind project, including the power lines, 900 wind turbines as part of the SunZia wind farm. That's going to connect the wind farm in New Mexico to Phoenix, and I believe into Southern California, providing power there. That is a 3.5 gigawatt wind farm. Another wind farm, this one under discussion for an awful long time. It is currently underway in Carbon County, Wyoming, $5 billion project by the Power Company of Wyoming. 3,500 megawatt Tochterry and Sierra Madre wind energy project that has approximately 600 wind turbines. Another project in Wyoming. This one actually a nuclear power plant, partially financed by Bill Gates. He's known to finance a number of renewables projects that are using some innovative new technologies. A $4 billion project, the TerraPower nuclear power plant. Broke ground in June. Very interesting. I believe it's going to use a different type of cooling system that can be then conventionally used for nuclear power plants. And you're starting to hear a bit more about nuclear power these days as we look to figure out different ways to generate additional power for all the power that demands for data centers and AI. So keep an eye on that one there. The largest hospital project I've seen in quite some time broke ground in April in Sacramento, the $3.7 billion UC Davis Medical Center. And again, that's in Sacramento, and that is a project I saw in the Dodge Construction Network. Dodge has always done a great job of putting out information on new construction projects. My database for electrical marketing, I only put in ones $100 million and up. You can get really zero in on some much smaller projects than that at Dodge, and it's construction.com. If you do want to get a list of the or downloadable data center projects and other types of construction projects, it's a part of the electrical marketing database. It's $99 a year for the total subscription to electrical marketing. That gets you all the news, some other market research that I do, some other market and sales forecasting, but also 4 times a year I do update this construction database for $99. You really can't beat it. Just some other large projects in our top 10. A $3 billion mixed-use development in Apex, North Carolina. That's Revidia's mixed-use development, zoned for 8,000 residential units and 12 million square feet of commercial and industrial space. Finishing up our list of the top 10, we've got a $2 billion Google data center in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and a $2 billion, and that is plans announced in April. But also, a proposal was announced a little bit earlier this year for a large residential development in downtown Los Angeles, Central City there, 4th and Central Residential Project. Probably no surprise to anyone that data centers were well represented on our large project list, and I did my best to put together a representative list of the data centers that are now in the pipeline. It is hard to catch them all, but I was able to find about 14 of them that were over $100 million in total contract value. And I've seen some numbers for with data centers that they can account for up to 40 to 45% of a data center's total construction cost is electrical equipment, and it continues to be a gigantic market for our industry because of all the electrical products they have there. The biggest that I've seen in some time for data centers, and this was announced in April, and this is in Indiana, which has been the home to quite a bit of data center development in New Carlisle, Indiana. $11 billion for an Amazon Web Service campus. And in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a Google data center, and that was plans announced in April, a $2 billion data center there. Also plans announced in April in Caldwell County, Texas, a Prime data center, $1.3 billion. Over in Virginia, a $1 billion data center, that's a Convergent Technology Park, entered planning stages in April. In Loudoun and Prince William counties, which is basically the data center corridor west of Washington, D.C. And this is a Google data center expansion plan there, $1 billion project. Going back to Indiana, Microsoft this time, plans announced in June for a $1 billion project in LaPorte, Indiana. Going down a bit to North Carolina, a $1 billion project, 4 Meta data centers in Catawba County. That broke ground in May. Another Meta data center in Montgomery, Alabama. Plans announced May 24, $800 million. And a $630 million project entered planning stages in Dulles, Virginia. That's on sort of the western edge of that data center corridor west of D.C. Dulles Digital Data Center. Let's say that 10 times fast. Buildings 6 and 8. Google data center in the Dalles, Oregon. That is a $600 million project, broke ground in March. Looking in Mesa, Arizona, entered the planning stages in April. $330 million to Google Red Hawk data center, phase 2. In Texas, Fort Fort Worth, Texas. It entered the planning stage in February. 220 million data center being put together by a QTS data center. Microsoft data center in San Antonio, Texas entered planning stages in March. 215 million. And in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and that's a bit south of the main data center quarter of the state, but the state is trying to develop data centers in some different regions. This one entered the planning stage in March 2024. $158 million Melrod Data Center Building B, again in Fredericksburg, site of the famous battle in the Civil War. There was an unusual amount of hospital construction projects that were over the $100 million mark. I did mention a little bit earlier the $3.7 billion UC Medical Center in Sacramento that broke ground in April. We also had a $1.6 billion project, Oakland, California, at CS Benoff Children's Hospital there. Updated plans announced in June 2024. In San Diego, broke ground in March. The Rady Children's Hospital Intensive Care Unit, $1.3 billion. And in Pittsburgh, plans announced April, $1 billion Allegheny General Hospital expansion. $650 million project, Wentzville, Missouri, just outside of St. Louis. That's a 483,000 square foot Mercy Hospital. That plans announced in April. And in Florida, Parrish, Florida, plans announced April, $548 million for the Baycare Hospital in Manatee. And in New York, they entered the planning stage in February, the famous New York Presbyterian Cancer Center, $304 million project there. Over down in South Carolina, Trident Health Center. That's on St. John's Island, a beautiful part of the world there. That's March 2024, $277 million. In Weaverville, North Carolina, entered the planning stages, a $254 million project, the Advent Health Hospital. In Florida, Gainesville Hospital in Gainesville, broke ground in May, $231 million project. Also in Florida, the Advent Daytona Health Hospital expansion, plans announced in 2024 of April, and that is a $220 million project. Another in Florida, the Winter Garden, Florida, plans announced in May, $145 million Advent Health Winter Garden Hospital. And another project in Florida, construction beginning to get ready this month in June, in Manatee County, the Lakewood Medical Center. That's a $120 million project. There were also some large renewable projects that I wanted to bring to your attention. We mentioned the Sunzia Wind Farm in New Mexico and going out to Phoenix and LA area with the power, and also we mentioned the wind project by the power company of Wyoming. But there was also a large battery recycling facility that broke ground in February in Ridgeville, South Carolina, Redwoods Material Battery Recycling Facility. That's a $1.8 billion project. In Clarksville, Tennessee, broke ground in February, a $1.6 million LG chemical battery plant, which I believe is going to be for EV batteries. Look in Mojave, California, a $1 billion project, the Eland Solar and Battery Storage Facility, broke ground in March. I mentioned a little bit earlier too, the big project that's going to support the wind farms, the offshore farms off of Long Island in Brooklyn, broke ground earlier this month in June. $861 million project, the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal Wind Farm. It's a logistics hub for Equinor's $810 million as the Empire Wind offshore wind project. And that's a long time in the making, but it sounds like it's finally getting off the ground. We had a big project in March breaking ground in Pima and Pinal counties, and that's the Serrano Solar and Storage Project, $650 million. And that is Pima and Pinal counties in Arizona. And in Kansas, we had it broke ground in April. The Harper and Kingman counties, a Flat Ridge Wind Farm, $533 million. In Phoenix, the Scatter Wash Battery Energy Storage System, that's a $500 million project. You know, with all the talk about renewables and today's presentation and some other times, I had to do some little research to go figure out how big are some of these projects that we're talking about. And if you've got a couple of minutes, I'll just run through some of the numbers I think you might find interesting as we're sizing some of these projects. When I talk about a project that's a gigawatt in power, that's a gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts or a billion watts. A gigawatt can power 750,000 homes. It's enough to power all the homes in either Nashville or in Dallas. A megawatt of power can power 750 to 1,000 homes. And it just looking over at the solar side, say all these panels, how much if you were to want a gigawatt of electricity, again that gigawatt can power about 750,000 homes. But if you wanted to power all those homes, how many panels of conventional size right now? 2.5 million photovoltaic panels according to informationenergy.gov. And taking a look at the wind power, and we're looking at how many wind turbines does it take to produce a gigawatt? Again, this is another also from energy.gov, or that's the Department of Energy. That's 310 utility scale wind turbines, and those are the big ones rated at over 3 megawatts to produce a gigawatt. Just to kind of give you a sense of some more conventional or older nuclear power. How much does it take for nuclear power to produce a gigawatt? Well, Hoover Dam is rated at a gigawatt, and the Indian Point nuclear power plant, which was decommissioned in 2021, that's just up the Hudson River in New York, also produced about a gigawatt. And you look at all the wind turbines in the U.S., and it's quite a really amazing number when you really think of it and how much it's grown over the past 10 years. There's currently 72,000 wind turbines across the U.S. that are generating 151 gigawatts. It's the fourth largest source of electricity generation. In total, right now, this is according to the American Clean Power Association, wind energy accounts for 9.8% of the country's electricity. And as we are talking about, and I just mentioned before about that project, Empire Wind off the coast of Long Island, to get an idea of the difference in the size of these turbines that are offshore. Those offshore turbines generate 8 megawatts to 12 megawatts. Whereas the newest land-based, the larger ones of the land-based are in the 3 megawatt to 4 megawatt range. So I've just always been kind of curious about the numbers and renewables and how much they take to produce electricity, but hopefully that little review gives you an idea on that. Well, that's our presentation today. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It's again sponsored by our friends at Champion Fiberglass. We do thank them for sponsoring the podcast for this year, and as they have over the past couple of years. We're getting very close to our 100th podcast. I think, gosh, that's pretty darn cool. Yeah, that wraps up our podcast for today. Please contact me if there's any other type of data that you would like us to cover in these podcasts. Also, I mentioned if you were interested in getting on to electrical marketing to subscribe, it's only $99 a year. We mentioned I got the downloadable database of the construction projects. We just gave you the highlights of some of the bigger ones here. We've got quite a few more in the database. It's only $99 a year. Our next presentation will be on July the 8th, which will take us right over the 4th of July holiday. So hope you're going to get a chance this summer and enjoy some good time with family and friends. And look forward to talking with you in a couple weeks. Until then, it's Jim Lucy, Editor-in-Chief, Electrical Wholesaling. Take care.